Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 9, canto 9, chapter 13, entitled The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. Text 27. Ete Vai Maithilam Rajan Atmavidya Visharada Yogeshvara Prasadenam Dvandvai Mukta Griheshu Api Etevai Maitila Rajan Etevai Maitila Rajan Atma Vidya Visharadaha Atma Vidya Visharadaha Yogeshvara Prasadena Yogeshvara Prasadena Dvandvair Mukta Griheshu Api Dvandvair Mukta Griheshu Api Etevai Maitila Rajan Atma Vidya Visharadaha Yogeshvara Prasadena Dvandvair Mukta Griheshu Api Etevai Maitila Rajan Atma Vidya Visharada Yogeshvara Prasadena Dvandvair Mukta Griheshu Api Etevai Maitila Rajan Atma Vidya Visharadaha Yogeshvara Prasadena Dvandvar Mukta Griheshu Api Yogeshvara Prasadena Mataji? Ete Vaimaitilarajan Atma Vidya Vishadada Yogeshvara Prasadena Vandhai Mukta Griheshvapi Ete, all of them. Vai, indeed. Maitilaha, the descendants of Mithila. Rajan, O king. Atmavidyam, Visharadaha, expert in spiritual knowledge. Yogeshvaram, Prasadenam, by the grace of Yogeshvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Dvandvai Muktaham, they were all freed from the duality of the material world. Griheshvapi, even though staying at home. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukadev Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, all the kings of the dynasty of Mithila were completely in knowledge of their spiritual identity. Therefore, even though staying at home, they were liberated from the duality of material existence." Purport. This material world is called Dvaita, or duality. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 476 says, Dvaite Badra Badra Gyan Sabha Mano Dharma E Bala E Manda E Sabha Brahma. In the world of duality, that is to say, in the material world, so-called goodness and badness are both the same. Therefore, in this world, to distinguish between good and bad, happiness and distress, is meaningless because they are both mental concoctions, manodharma. Because everything here is miserable and troublesome. To create an artificial situation and pretend it to be full of happiness is simply illusion. The liberated person, being above the influence of the three modes of material nature, is unaffected by such dualities in all circumstances. He remains Krishna conscious by tolerating so-called happiness and distress. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.14. Matra sparshas tu konteya shitoshna sukadukadaha agama paino nityas tamstitikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in the course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception of sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Those who are liberated, being on the transcendental platform of rendering service to the God, do not care about so-called happiness and distress. They know that these are like changing seasons, which are perceivable by contact with the material body. Happiness and distress come and go. Therefore, a pandita, a learned man, is not concerned with them. As it is said, Gatasun agatasunscha nanu shochanti panditaham. The body is dead from the very beginning because it is a lump of matter. It has no feelings of happiness and distress. Because the soul within the body is in the bodily concept of life, he suffers happiness and distress, but these come and go. It is understood herein that the kings born in the dynasty of Mithila were all liberated persons, unaffected by so-called happiness and distress of this world. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. So before we elaborate a little bit on this verse, we will read the previous verses which don't have purport. And from yesterday, we stopped at the verse number 13. So from 13 till 27, we will just read the translation. All of those kings that have been mentioned in this 27th verse are now named. Text 13. Because he was born in an unusual way, the son was called Janaka. And because he was born from the dead body of his father, he was known as Vaideha. Because he was born from the churning of his father's material body, he was known as Mithila. And because he constructed a city as King Mithila, the city was called Mithila. O King Parikshit, from Mithila came a son named Udavasu. From Udavasu, Nandivardhana. From Nandivardhana, Suketu. And from Suketu, Devarata. From Devarata came a son named Brihadrata. And from Brihadrata, a son named Mahavirya, who became the father of Sudriti. The son of Sudriti was known as Drishtaketu. And from Drishtaketu came Haryashva. From Haryashva came a son named Maru. 16. The son of Maru was Pratipaka, and the son of Pratipaka was Kritharata. From Kritharata came Devamidha. From Devamidha, Vishruta, and from Vishruta, Mahadridhi. 17. From Mahadridhi was born a son named Kriratha. From Kritirata was born Maharoma. From Maharoma came a son named Svarnaroma. And from Svarnaroma came Harshvaroma. 18. From Harshvaroma came a son named Shiradvaja, also called Janaka. When Shiradvaja was plowing a field, from the front of his plow, Shira, appeared a daughter named Sita Devi, who later became the wife of Lord Ramachandra. Thus, he was known as Shiradvaja. The son of Shiradvaja was Kaushadvaja, and the son of Kaushadvaja was King Dharmadvaja, who had two sons, namely Kritadvaja and Mitadvaja. 20 and 21. O Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Kritadvaja was Keshidvaja, and the son of Mitadvaja was Khandikya. The son of Kritadvaja was expert in spiritual knowledge, and the son of Mitadvaja was expert in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Khandikya fled in fear of Keshidvaja. The son of Keshidvaja was Bahuman, and the son of Bhanuman, and the son of Bhanuman was Shatadyumna, 22. The son of Shatadyumna was named Suchi. From Suchi, Sanadvaja was born, and from Sanadvaja came a son named Urjaketu. The son of Urjaketu was Aja, and the son of Aja was Purujit. 23. The son of Purujit was Arishtanemi, and his son was Shrutayu. Shrutayu begot a son named Suparshvaka, and Suparshvaka begot Chitraratha. The son of Chitraratha was Kshemadhi, who became the king of Mithila. 24. The son of Kshemadhi was Samartha, and his son was Satyaratha. The son of Satyaratha was Upaguru, and the son of Upaguru was Upagupta, a partial expansion of the fire god. 25. The son of Upagupta was Vasvananta. The son of Vasvananta was Yuyudha. The son of Yuyudha was Subhashana, and the son of Subhashana was Shruta. The son of Shruta was Jaya, from whom there came Vijaya. The son of Vijaya was Rita. Text 26. The son of Rita was Shaunaka. The son of Shaunaka was Vithahavya. The son of Vithahavya was Driti. And the son of Driti was Bahulashva. The son of Bahulashva was Kriti, and his son was Mahavashi. So in this way, Shukadev Goswami said, "My dear Parikshit, all the kings of the dynasty of Mithila were completely in knowledge of their spiritual identity. Therefore, even though staying at home, they were liberated from the dualities of material existence." Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Radharas Bihari ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Reshtarin. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So again, it is very interesting to go through so many names of so many exalted devotees, and although we might not be so at the moment kind of appreciative of their being mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but just for the very sake that they are mentioned within the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, we should understand that there must have been, and as it is mentioned here in this text 27, they have been such a great exalted personalities, great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is why the whole dynasty is also ornamented. This dynasty that has been talked about here, dynasty of the Maharaj Nimi, because he was such an exalted personality, and we see down the line, practically in his succession, every one of those kings have been such a great and devoted personality, devoted to the Supreme Person. So, although we might not have much information about them, we may maybe just afterwards recollect that King Janaka, as the father of Sita Devi, about whom we know a little more, has been described much more in different scriptures. Even here some in 9 cantos, some pastimes of Lord Ramachandra have been mentioned, and of course in Ramayana and other Puranas. But more or less for others we don't hear so much. But it doesn't mean that that information might not be existent. We know that what we have here available in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam is not all. There is so much more. Even on higher planetary systems, there is so much more information. There's so many more pastimes. There's so many more leelas. So maybe some of those kings might be also glorified in a greater manner in those pages of Srimad Bhagavatam that are not available to us. But whether that is the case or not, their lives have been exemplary, and at least they deserve to be for our purification and for us receiving their blessings also. Receiving blessings of any devotee, it's so essential in the spiritual practice, so that we can advance and overcome any kind of obstacles that we face in our spiritual pursuit. So their mention here, it is for our purification and our appreciation. And we see how Shukadev Goswami and this whole Srimad Bhagavatam narration, it's just so personal. It is very personal. We know how Krishna is very grateful for any little service that a devotee performs. Krishna is eternally indebted. He never forgets any little single service that one may perform, even if it is done without desire to please Krishna. Even in that case, what to speak if somebody tries to somehow, although unqualified, tries to perform any kind of devotional service. So how much Krishna is grateful. Yeah. You know how Krishna expresses that, naparai ham. Just so much service that gopis have performed. Krishna is so grateful. He said, I cannot repay. So all of those kings that have been so dedicatedly carrying out the flag, the dvaja, we heard so many dvajas were here, the flag of Dharma, by reigning and establishing the religious principles, and in that way enabling everybody to practice peacefully spiritual life. So how they have sacrificed and how much they have served the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is very noble, and it is very wonderful that they are mentioned, although we might not be, just by hearing their names, we might not be that appreciative. But that, as I said, it points out to that gratefulness, that quality which is so rare, which is almost practically extant in this world. So that their names are given here for our purification, because they're all related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the spiritual world, it is not just when we come that there will be us and Krishna only. There are so many other devotees, unlimited number of the devotees, and we have to learn how to appreciate devotees for any little service that they do, because Krishna is appreciating that so much. We should also appreciate any little service. So they have done so much service. That is something that we cannot even comprehend in any way. So that they are mentioned here in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna points out in Srimad Bhagavad Gita that out of man, I am the monarch. When Krishna describes his different opulences, he said, out of horses I am Uchaishrava, out of elephants I am Airavata. But he said among men, he said, I am the monarch, I am the king. And we know that the whole disciplic succession has been carrying out evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakaline hamahata yoganashta parantapa, through the line of the kings. Why kings? Again, because they were the ones who are, and they are the ones who are preserving this Dharma, who are protecting the Dharma. religious principles. So this is why the monarch or the king is a representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is empowered. Is empowered. And although many times, especially nowadays, if we try to relate to such kind of empowerment and certain position, we might not be so confident, or we might not relate so much that somebody is the representative who holds such kind of position. Definitely, it is very difficult to literally take it in such a way that somebody, at least immediately, is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But at least from the point of principle, even Srila Prabhupada, he would often respect, because somebody holding certain type of position, nothing happens by, or everything happens by the will of the Lord. So everything is arranged. Everything has its some particular type of purpose behind. So anybody representing certain post or being at a certain post wouldn't be there if Krishna wouldn't be sanctioning it. So therefore, that respect is offered. Because somebody, even though from spiritual point of view might not be qualified, and even to slightest extent compared to all of those kings mentioned here, but just because they're holding certain position, they would be given some respect. We also know, even in the spiritual line, even somebody who is a Mayavadi, but if he's a sannyasi, just because he's holding a certain position, the respect is given. So, of course, respect should be given to each and every living entity. But at least it reminds, or it can remind us, that it is something that it's in connection to Krishna. And it is something that Krishna, as he stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, represents him. So, all of those kings as in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna points out, they have a very essential role to play because they are representatives of Dharma. And interestingly, in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the same King Janak has been mentioned as a perfect example of such kind of performance of the duty, but in a perfect relationship with the spiritual path. And then Krishna points out that as he had performed his spiritual duties so exemplary, so everybody else should follow. And they serve as an example. Yad yadacharati shreshtas tattadevetaro janaha sat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Whatever a great man does, the common man follows. So we see how King Janaka in so many ways have been glorified because he was solely dedicated for performing activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is something that, again, if we compare to contemporary circumstances worldwide, it is almost incomprehensible. It would be very difficult because definitely such kind of qualities are not present practically anymore. That somebody is so selflessly sacrificing practically everything in every aspect of life for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All of those kings, and interestingly here, all those staying at home, all the living a life of apparently, what we heard in previous verses, apparently they might have what has been elaborated upon, even taking a grihastha role or being entangled with some, again, apparently mundane activities, but still they didn't deviate in any sense from their spiritual consciousness. So for them it didn't matter. That matters very much, of course, for somebody who is on the lower level. Somebody who is on the Kanishta level, he's very much attached to certain type of facility, certain type of control, certain type of position, certain type of benefits. And somebody who is more advanced, who is on the Madhyam level, he actually is not attached, but he would perform the activity. He would perform the duties. This is why it's very wonderful that certain type of, and the highest type of pleasure actually comes from the ability to perform one's duty. It doesn't come from the point of trying to gratify his senses or any kind of certain subtle conception of power and control, but it comes from that point of performance of duty. Just like Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam, Ma phaleshu kadachana. Everyone has the right to perform his duties, so we have the right to perform our duties. We have a right to serve, and that is the most wonderful thing. But the result, that of course depends on Krishna. That is left up to him. So on the Madhyam level, that kind of a devotee, is not attached to certain type of result. He's at least happy that he can perform the duty. But very interestingly, the highest level, the Uttama Bhakta, the Uttam devotee, he is just completely indifferent. He's just completely indifferent. He's not detached, he's not attached. Yeah. He is actually really the one who is just fully satisfied to be able to perform any kind of devotional service, to perform any kind of activity for the pleasure of Krishna. So all of those kings, they were perfectly aligned with the principles of Dharma, and this is why this whole dynasty that we have been hearing of Maharaj Nimi has become glorified. And no wonder then, therefore, Sita Devi appeared in such a dynasty. Like we know, there are so many examples when Krishna appeared in the moon dynasty. There are so many wonderful analogies. It is said like a sandalwood in the Malaya forest, or so many, like a moon, like a sun, and so on, as to glorify certain dynasties. So Krishna wants to glorify his devotee. Krishna wants to glorify that kind of dynasty that he had appeared. And of course, he appeared in both Sun dynasty and the Moon dynasty. Yeah. And he has connection, like here we can see even with this dynasty of Maharaj Nimi through Sita Devi. So it is just a wonderful expression of the Lord, of his gratefulness towards all of those devotees who have just so selflessly served him in so many wonderful ways. Because they were selfless. And this is the whole point mentioned here, that they were not concerned about their own comfort zone, as many times we tend to be, but they were just absolutely outgoing. And wherever there was any kind of requirement, they would sacrifice. They were ready to sacrifice their lives. That is the nature of a Kshatriya. He would sacrifice even his own life. He would sacrifice anything just to uphold the dharmic principles. Because if dharmic principles are not upholded, then there is the question of anyone peacefully performing spiritual life. How difficult nowadays is to perform spiritual activities, especially in some places where there is so much opposition. There's no even question of any kind of dharmic principles. It becomes very difficult when there is no foundation, when there is no culture, when there is no understanding, and even on top of all of that, when there is certain type of opposition, it becomes very, very difficult to be Krishna conscious. It is not easy. For us now, we are taking it for granted. It's so easy just to come here, chant in the morning. and being Krishna conscious, having such a wonderful opportunity to see the deities, to focus our minds. But in many places, this is impossible. It's virtually impossible. Like many times we hear the stories of the devotees in the early days in Russia, how much persecution was taking place. But actually they were very Krishna conscious, very much Krishna conscious. So it depends. Krishna sometimes might know what is the best for us. Sometimes to little jerk us from our sleep, from being in the sleep in the lap of Maya. So sometimes that we take shelter, that we are forced to take shelter of him. Or sometimes circumstances are just as such that one can really advance so fast by again taking shelter of Krishna in the very unfavorable circumstances. And although it might not externally appear that somebody is Krishna conscious, but actually internally there is so much happening because devotee has taken full confidence that Krishna will protect him as one of the 6 principles of surrender, of Sharanagati. So it means full confidence that Krishna will protect one in any kind of circumstance. So this is what the duty of all these kings have been, and for any sake they would ready to sacrifice anything because they knew the Dharma, this is what they were appointed for. And this is the prime service that they are rendering to the whole prajas, anyone who is dependent on them. Because what was the point of becoming a certain type of leader if one is not able to deliver his dependents from these clutches of repeated birth and death? And as we see here, Maharaj Nimi also earlier, he was just not interested in keep on appearing in this world under any type of circumstances. Because what is the nature of this material world? This has been mentioned. Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, he said, this world is called Vaita, it's the world of duality. It's just in a constant flux, constant duality that appears. Happiness, distress, happiness, distress. That's what Prahlad Maharaj mentions in the 7th canto. He points out that what is the purpose endeavoring for happiness? Because as much happiness we are supposed to gain, that much we will gain anyway, no matter how much hard we endeavor for it. And we see nowadays how much people do endeavor. Oh, this will make me happy, that will make me happy. So much endeavor, so much time, so much energy invested in just trying to be happy. But you don't get more than what you're already allotted by your karma in this life. It is already proportionally settled. This much happiness, that much distress. And although so much endeavor is there also to avoid distress, that distress comes in one form or the other. So that it's fixed. Unless one again is able, and by practice of Krishna consciousness, can transcend any amount of happiness or distress. Or at least becomes indifferent in a sense that he is able to focus on his devotional service. Because as we said, this is what is the greatest privilege of a devotee, to have the opportunity to render service to the Lord, regardless of any kind of outcome, regardless of any kind of result, whether it be positive or negative, in a sense of bringing him happiness or distress on the personal level. But if it is for the pleasure of Krishna, this is what matters. And actually even on the personal discomfort, we hear so many times how gopis are undergoing so much discomfort. But actually it is the highest pleasure. It is giving them the greatest happiness. Why? Because it's giving pleasure to Krishna. So all of those kings also, they're just utterly selfless, caring only that others will have that opportunity to render devotional service. This is their only concern. Because that duality of material existence cannot be eradicated. We know that this world is urdhva mulam ada shakam ashvatam prahurarvya. It's just a perverted reflection. That's why it is dual. That's why it's duality. If we don't want duality, well, then we have to go to the spiritual world. Or we have to transcend that duality. Krishna in so many places in Srimad Bhagavad Gita points out that one, of course, if we can at least aspire, we can pray, we can hope to come to that level that we are not distracted by happiness or distress, gain or loss, honor or dishonor. So many different dualities that exist. Heat, cold. Now heat is coming slowly. Well, but our devotional service shouldn't stop. And this is again what in purport further on Srila Prabhupada points out, Matras Pashastu Konteya Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada Agama Paino Nityastam Stitikshasva Bharata. We have to learn how to tolerate. At our level we have to tolerate. Those who are exalted devotees of the Lord, they don't tolerate, they don't care. For them it's just, they don't even notice. For them what matters, it's only devotional service. But for us, of course, we have to tolerate. Somehow tolerate. Heat, cold, like Prabhupada gives example in that purport on that verse 2:14. Winter time might be very cold, still one has to take bath. Or cooking in the summer might be hot, still one has to do it. It's just one has to come at least to that level of duty, beyond the level of I like or I dislike. So that's much higher level. From that level of duty, then that love can be developed, love towards Krishna, because again that appreciation, natural appreciation will be there. Somebody is sacrificing so much, and we are doing something, and through service that relationship develops. So that duality cannot be avoided. What can be only in some ways experienced differently is just that our consciousness can change towards that duality. Dualities will always be there, but whether we experience that duality or not, that is what our consciousness might depend on. If we raise our consciousness, that we won't be so affected by that duality. Or at least we will learn how to tolerate, at best. At least I can speak from personal point of view, at least somehow then we learn how to tolerate. We learn how to tolerate that and continue whatever service has to be performed. So duality is unavoidable. Spiritual world, there are no dualities. There are absolutely no dualities. We may get a little glimpse how everything in the spiritual world is absolute. It is not relative. Like we hear, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, just through chanting everything else becomes manifest. It's absolute. That's an absolute platform. Of course, for us this is different. We make that differentiation, again, being under influence of that duality. But there's a very interesting test in psychology. Like they have sometimes, like they can put on the wall, let's say you have a wall, and they project different images. And what you can do, you can say use that, like kind of little spear, how is that called? Dart, yes. And and they tell you, every time you should just, aim at that image. But then at some point, if they project an image of somebody who is very dear to you, what are you going to do? Just imagine anyone who is dear to you and that image is projected and you're supposed to, throw that dart on each and every one. So what would you do at that point? Huh? What? You will not throw. Okay. Yes, you will not throw because there is some sense of that absolute nature. It actually has really nothing to do with that person or whatever, but you just won't do it. Because somewhere there is that sense of that absolute understanding or connection between that person. So at least we can have some glimpse of that absolute nature. And we hope, of course, when we chant the holy name, that that absolute nature will become more and more revealed to us. Because again, that world of duality doesn't give any happiness. It cannot give any kind of happiness, because actually everything, therefore, in this material world, even higher planetary systems or lower, they're all considered places of miseries. Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartinarjuna mamupetya tu konteya punarjanmana vidyate. They're all places of repeated birth and death. So then what is the point? Considering this will make me happy, that will make me happy. There is no happiness. Because as soon as you are happy, another moment distress will come. And that so often, that very same happiness that made us happy actually will turn us into, or make us very distressful. In Srimad Bhagavatam there is a very interesting analogy pointing out it is like a tamed animal. Like a tamed animal. How many times we hear that in some zoo or circus or this and that, some animal turns against the trainer or somebody else. So this world is like that. It's the world of duality. At one moment we think, oh, we can enjoy, we can be happy, and this will make me happy, but then that very same thing turns against you. It's a very interesting example. And how often that does happen. We think somebody will give me pleasure and satisfaction and this and that very same person, in whichever sphere of life, turns against you. It does happen. So that's that world of the duality. So we have to learn how to transcend that world of duality, because even in the material mode of goodness, still there is duality. Even material mode of goodness, even that happiness, still there is tinge of distress, and you can't maintain it. That's why it's just mode of goodness, it's not Shuddha Sattva. There's no happiness in this world that can satisfy one. Because first of all, by our nature, we don't belong to this material world. So then where is the question of happiness in the first place? Even if somebody aspires to go to any kind of place, through the scriptures we may hear of Svarga Loka or this, that, or even in this material world, aspiring for any kind of position, because we think certain type of position, certain type of facility will make us happy. Just if we, for a moment maybe, imagine that we are the most famous and most wealthiest man on this planet. And everyone would think, wow, that would be great, that would be amazing. Could have so many facilities for sense gratification. Being famous, being honored, being, so wealthy, having ability to purchase practically anything one desires. And then how many people aspire? And sometimes they think, oh, if I get that, if I get this facility, if I get that facility, if I get this, that, then I will be peaceful and happy. But it's very interesting. Even if somebody, let's say, gains something, still one won't be happy and satisfied. One won't be happy and satisfied. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a very interesting example. It said, let's say, okay, you're the wealthiest man on this planet, everything wonderful, everything great. But 100 times that is the happiness. Just imagine, 100 times that is the happiness of Upadevatas. And 100 times their happiness, it's happiness of demigods. And 100 times their happiness, it's happiness of Indra. And 100 times Indra's happiness, it's happiness of Brihaspati. And 100 times happiness of Brihaspati is happiness of Lord Brahma. So how many times that happiness is far removed? And still, none of them actually are happy. Because again, that duality of this material existence exists. But let's say, even we imagine, okay, we come to the heavenly planets, and there we will, enjoy and be happy and this and that. But still, because of that duality, our mentality is that we compare. We compare ourselves to others. We don't look for that happiness and satisfaction from within. We measure it by some external circumstances. So just because of that mentality, again, even if we come to heavenly planets, we will find somebody else has a better chariot. And you'll become jealous or envious of that person. thinking, oh, he's doing better, maybe I should work more, I should make more effort, I should also have good chariot. Or maybe that person has a better palace. Like here, how many times people, they think, oh, if I shift from this, 1 BHK to maybe 2 or 3, then this is perfection of life and I have something better. But then you compare again to something else and then again you're not satisfied. Or in the heavenly planet, somebody has better apsara or this and that. Again, you're not satisfied and happy. And there's just no end. It's a world of duality. It's just the world of duality. So this is why none of these kings mentioned here in this chapter, in the dynasty of Maharaj Nimi, they were not concerned by any external circumstances. And this is not why they took certain position and responsibility of taking care of the whole planet, taking care of all these citizens that they were representing, but they were concerned with that internal growth and they were concerned how to perform devotional service and enable others to perform devotional service, because this is the ultimate perfection of existence. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. Are there any comments or questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, as Prabhupada said that our temples are, although this is a material world, but our temples are Vaikuntha, spiritual world. And our devotees live in that spiritual world. We see duality exists here also. Like what I am asking is exactly...
Prabhupada said, Vrindavan, it's not matter of place, Vrindavan, it's matter of consciousness. So it's all matter of consciousness. So spiritual world, it's Vaikuntha, it's matter of consciousness. So what is our consciousness? What kind of level our consciousness is, or what is our consciousness focused upon? That's what matters. So it's nothing again external so much, it's an internal, it's a matter of consciousness. Okay?
So the question is like, in our movement, as far as I have seen, whichever, how many years, whatever year I have seen, our preaching is mostly result oriented. We preach based on result.
Well, with purity, definitely there will be some result as well. But we shouldn't be attached to that kind of conception only of the result. We should be more focused on the purity. And that will be reflected also. To some extent, result will be reflected. But in some ways, yes, we have to be result-orientated because there is some motives, or better to say motivation behind. So it depends on which level, how one can progress and perform devotional service. Whatever is required, then one should cultivate. Because again, if it's just purity, but how will purity come? If we are not engaged, how will purity also manifest? It's not going to happen. So we also have to have some kind of motivation behind to serve in some way so that we can achieve that purity. Of course, as the essence, we have to be focused on the ultimate goal, to be that purity itself. That is really what matters. But that purity, again, it won't come unless we abhyas, unless we perform some endeavor. Utsaha nishchayat dhairyat. There has to be some enthusiasm. There has to be some endeavor. Okay.
So actually, Prabhuji, just like you said, we should have something like we should have some motivations, result-oriented preaching. Like
it has to be there. Has to be there. Prabhupada encouraged that.
But it is like very difficult to give up the fruits of that result which comes.
Yes, that is Sakam Karma level. So we are advised to come to at least one of the levels of Nishkam Karma. Until we completely rise to the ultimate platform of Nishkam Karma, I mean just doing things just for pleasure of Krishna. Being attached or not. Okay? Okay, quickly one more, Sharad. Last.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You were mentioning about the denizens of the heavenly planets, the upper planets, how they also have these dualities. So my question is, just wanted to know, because like I have heard and read also, Prabhupada says that in the upper planetary systems, there is no problem as such in the sense of disease and old age. So when we speak about dualities in this world, material world, so why we don't appreciate it, or why we condemn it, or why it's not good, is because it makes us unhealthy. Just like when we become envious of someone, when we become jealous.
First of all, there are so many problems.
So
Shastras for certain type of people describe everything as the ultimate to attract them, at least to higher level. But there are so many other problems. From our point of view, again, this may seem like something that is the ultimate goal, but it's not the ultimate goal. How many times Indra ends up in some kind of problem? There are so many problems.
So just like in this material world also, when we develop this kind of competitive mentality, when we have, so then it actually affects us only. This kind of judging, becoming envious, all these anarthas when we are there. So basically we become diseased, by that dualities. Hence it is not good. But then in the upper planetary systems, there is not going to be any problem because there is no disease, so it includes mental disease, physical disease.
Problems are not just on the physical level. Problems are on that subtle level of attachment, false ego. There are so many problems that demigods face like this. They're mostly on the level of karma kanda, karma mishra bhaktas. So that means they're mostly sakama. They're very much attached to the fruitful activities, some result that it's derived from their performance of duties. So devotees should transcend that kind of mentality.
So there are mental problems there. I mean, mental diseases exist there, but then there are no physical diseases, and old age is not there. Something like that, you mean to say?
Well, there is no. It's pretty clear. There is no disease. There is no old age, but birth and death is there, depending also which level. But difficulties are there. And let's say again, everything is wonderful. Still, one will not be happy and satisfied in this material world because it's not its natural position. That's why Prabhupada would said, wet or dry, it's all the same. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.